Celebrate Africa Festival. We started yesterday, and this morning we had wonderful presentations from a group of faculty and students that went to Senegal this summer. And this afternoon, we are officially starting our Celebrate Africa Festival events. And yeah, we are so delighted to be here and to have everybody. As you can see, we have quite a good number of panelists for tonight. It's going to be an interesting conversation. But first, I would like to welcome everybody to the Center for African Studies. My name is Susan Mongala, and at the center we do a lot. And for more information, you can check with our volunteers at the back, grab our flyers for the different activities and some of the programs that we offer. But we would like to welcome everybody. And of course, with us, we have a distinguished guest from Ghana. If you could please welcome them and give an applause. And I don't want to take so much time with all the introductions and so forth, but I would like to turn over to our wonderful moderators that will be taking us through the conversation for today. With me is Samantha Blanc, if you could wave. Okay, you guys should clap for her. And then I have Dr. Patrick Dugmore, if you could please wave. And at this time, I'm just going to turn over the microphone to them to lead us through the entire session. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Once again, welcome to Celebrate Africa. Another edition. Can you guys please make some noise? Welcome to the University of Pittsburgh, to the Center of African Studies. So today we have a very interesting panel to discuss about a topic that is very interesting. So I will introduce myself, and then I will introduce our panelists on the left. I will just say their names, and then each of them will tell you a little bit more about themselves. So my name is Patrick Dugmore, and I'm originally from Cameroon, and I moved here in Pittsburgh since 2013. I'm actually an alumni from Pitt. I went to Pitt Law here back in 2018. So now I work at Maternity in the city. So I'm glad to be here, to be, a facilitator here, the panel. So I will turn over to my left to Reverend Andrews Amo.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Amo. I'm from Ghana. I have lived in Pittsburgh since 1986. I actually went to seminary here and went to school of education here. I just retired as a public school teacher. I teach also part-time at the Geneva College. I'm Reverend Amo, so I'm also a minister. And I believe that that's the best way to actually get involved with the African American community. So I attended lecture.
So yes, after Dr. Amo, we will turn over to Dr. Ken O'Connor.
Good afternoon. Please call me Kaya. I am a Dr. Henderson professor in the School of Social Work here at the University of Pittsburgh, where I'm also the director of the Center on Race and Social Problems, and I serve as the Associate Dean for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I'm a four-time graduate alum of the University of Pittsburgh, so I love it here very much. I'm also a professional West African dancer, so I'm here in the capacity of a clinical social worker as well as a cultural artist. I was the co-director of the Fulbright Hayes trip to Senegal this year, and teach and train our community in connecting to their culture through the West African arts. Nice to see all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Kaya. Dr. Felix Germain, that's how we pronounce it in French.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
manage band. So, Philippe Tumay, I'm an associate professor in the Department of Africana Studies. Originally, I am from Martinique and the Caribbean. My work is about, I work a lot on migration. I work a lot on African migration and Caribbean migrations to France. I've written a book about that. Written many articles on African and Caribbean migrants and similar theme. I'm currently writing a book on race and sports in the French context in Europe.
Thank you for being here with us, Dr. Felix. So our last panelist on the left, please introduce yourself, Dr. Abby Fabohana.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Abby Fabohana. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Public Health and the director of the 4+1 Accelerated Program. I'm originally from Nigeria. I've been in Pittsburgh since 1996. My interest has been on social determinants of health and health equity, which has led me to some work in Nigeria. I've been working in Nigeria for the past 8 years now. A lot of partnership I have. And we traveled to Senegal a few months ago, I think in May, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to do some work in Senegal as well. Thank you.
So I will turn over to my co-moderator, Black, Sam.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Samantha Black. I am from Spanish Town, Jamaica. And as with every Jamaican, I have several jobs. So I am a published author. I publish children's books. I am also one of the founders of Greenwood Plan. You might have heard about our acquisition of a building downtown. So we run a nonprofit. I am the president of the board. And my current endeavor is chef. And I am actually interested in having cultural conversations via food. I do think that language is a barrier for a lot of people, a lot of immigrants. And I do think that food is a great conveyor of all the things that we love and value, especially, as a Jamaican, we have really good food. And I would like to create a space in which immigrants, specifically Caribbean immigrants, no shade, right? Love y'all. But a space in which Caribbean immigrants can communicate about our history, about our culture, and our families. So I am going to pass it to one of our panelists today, Prince Manker.
I think I'm the only one up here. I am not a doctor.
No, I'm not a doctor either.
I know, but you're the moderator. So yes, my name is Prince Gordon Manker. I am part of the Bamaleke community. I've done my African ancestry DNA, and it traced back to Bachum, which is a community in Cameroon, and it was through that I found out that I was in the royal lineage. Here in Pittsburgh, I work at the Wilkinsburg Community Development Corporation. I'm the Director of Business Development. It's helped the businesses in any way I can to help them grow or sustain their business. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Dr. Shalegra Moye. You like that? You like?
Hello, everyone. I am Shalegra Moye. I work here in the School of Education at the University of Pittsburgh, where I direct our educational transition and enrichment programs. I am also blessed to be a faculty affiliate in Africana Studies. I just love that phrase, faculty affiliate, which means I'm an adjunct professor in Africana Studies. I have Africa in my heart. I have been blessed with the opportunity to go home, as I like to call it. I was in Ghana and Togo in 22. I'm headed to Kenya and Tanzania in December of this year. And so I really see my role as an educator, as a community participant, and really helping the folks that I'm in community with understanding who we are, understanding our connection to home, and really that they are inclusive, right? And it's all of us or none of us. And so I'm really excited to be part of this panel today. Thank you.
Thank you. And last we have Dr. Leonora Anyango.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Leonora Anyango, and I come from Kenya, Eastern Africa. I'm proud to be Kenyan and also proud to be American. I have two heritages. I've been here for quite some time. I also am an alum of the University of Pittsburgh and other universities in the US. And I teach English at the English department here at the University of Pittsburgh. I am a teaching professor, and I also wear many hats. I'm very avid in the community, especially the refugee community, where I give support that especially includes languages and social justice using language. How do we help people who do not know how to speak English to survive in their lives in America? That is the big question in my heart, and I try my best to do that every single day of my time here on earth. God has given me that. So I'm really appreciative to be here today, and I look forward to this conversation because I also am very keen on making sure that we who call ourselves continental Africans are relating very well with other Africans in diaspora. And I have given these conversations or workshops to students who are in colleges, and I've been able to work with them on issues concerning relationships between people, African peoples of different continents. Thank you.
Here are equipped with the necessary to kind of navigate through that. So the theme we have for our discussion today is bridging the gap between Africa and the Africa diaspora. So a small housekeeping item, just be mindful of the time. I know this is a very interesting topic, and if we are not mindful of the time, we can stay here until tomorrow. So without further ado, I will give the first question, right? And for this specific question, instead of going left to right and having all the panelists say what they think, we probably have only two of you guys, if we can stick that to two answers, just to be mindful of the time. And don't worry, we have more questions coming down the road, and each of you will certainly have, something to say. So what historical factors, what historical event, we still have those events probably today, are relevant and have been shaping the relationship between African and African from the diaspora from Africa. I would probably turn over to
When you look at what has gone on in the past, the transatlantic slave trade was a major thing that affected Africans so much. There was also colonialism, where Europeans were just over all of Africa. You have the English, we have the French, you have the Germans, we have all kinds of groups from Europe who were colonizing African countries. For me as a Ghanaian, one important thing was our first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah went to Lincoln University here, had degrees here in 1939, 1942, and he went on to University of Pennsylvania and went on to London to get a PhD, and that's where what we call Pan-Africanism started. He believes that all people of African descent, we have similar values and similar things that we need to look at. And because of that, Pan-Africanism began, and Ghana became the first Saharan country to gain independence. And within 3 years, he was able to mobilize 19 African states to have independence. And he also invited people from other African countries to come and be educated in Ghana and go back to their countries. So basically, these events are very, very important. Now, around 1971, Ghanaians began to invite musicians and other people to Ghana. I'm sure some of you know a musician by the name Wilson Pickett. He was in Ghana. Muhammad Ali and others were in Ghana. And around 2000, Ghanaians also invited more people to come over and even made a law that people of African descent can come and dwell in Ghana and even be naturalized citizens. It happened, and Maya Angelou came, and people like, let me see, W.E. Du Bois, some people say Du Bois, but French is Du Bois, and there was also George Padmore, who came to Ghana. And after that, a very big thing happened. The year of return happened in 2019, where Ghanaians invited all kinds of people to come to Ghana to celebrate 400 years of slavery. That, yes, come back to Ghana. So in 2019, so many people came. And after that, beyond the year of return, Ghanaian government made a law that yes, African Americans and those from Caribbean descent can come to Ghana and live there and even be naturalized. So many people have gone back. Some people are there for good. It's funny because one time I was driving to a place called Ebri. I looked at the wall and Rita Marley's house was there, Bob Marley's wife. I said, wow. So there are so many of these things that happen, but we are trying to, as Ghanaians, we're trying to bring African Americans and people of Caribbean descent to come back to Ghana, to dwell there, and have influence on our culture still there. We're not saying they should be chained to our tribal rules and everything, but once they're there, they enjoy it. What the Ghanaian government has done is you can buy land and only pay administrative fee of $700. I am from Ghana, but I am not allowed to pay only $700 for land. But you are allowed. Those of you who are from the African American community and Caribbean descent, you can go to Ghana and get land for just $700, build a house there and live there. And there are so many people doing businesses there. So even though the history has been very terrible, I'm glad that it's getting better.
Historical events are still shaping Africa and its diaspora today. So the bottom line is that African diaspora can go back in Ghana and have a plot of land at only $700. That's amazing. Please.
Yes, I appreciate this question, right? Because I think of the role of history, right? Teaching history, learning history, right? And I see that as the biggest barrier that shapes the relationships between African Americans and Africans across the diaspora. For instance, I'm a child of the 70s, right? And I remember as a child seeing commercials, I think they were like Feed the Children commercials, right? And all of the images that were projected into our homes about the continent of Africa were of starvation and disease and derelict and all of these awful things, right? And so those are the kinds of stories that I grew up understanding and believing about Africa until I was a very big age, right? One of the things that I hear students share with me in the courses I teach, right, who are from the continent or from across the diaspora is that, you know, they are getting these very problematic messages about Americans, about African Americans, right? And our laziness, or, you know, we don't value education, right? And so the same way that colonialism has worked to really dampen what we know, and our love and support and care for one another, I see that happening, right, for folks who are coming over here. And that really, I think, has a very negative impact on how our relationships are being shaped.
Thank you very much. That's a very
Before we go to the second question, I would like to have Dr. Gandhi introduce himself.
My name is Onyinye Gandhi. I'm an international lawyer, president of Blue Pearl International. It's an international law consulting firm. I'm also the president of the Nigerian community here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm glad to be with you this afternoon. Thank you. And sorry, I had to spend about 45 minutes in traffic and 20 minutes looking for parking. So I apologize.
Thank you. So for our next question, I do think a definition is important. So I would ask that whoever is answering the question also give a short definition of what cultural appropriation is. Our question is, how can members of the diaspora connect with their African roots without cultural appropriation? And again, please, just a short definition of what you think cultural appropriation is. And we'll take an answer from both sides.
Yeah, the way I understand cultural appropriation is that it is a way in which people use another culture without, first of all, there's an assumption that they don't belong to that culture. That's the biggest assumption when you're talking about cultural appropriation. And then the second thing is that they are not using it the right way. It's like they are just, maybe wearing an African dress to show that they can wear it without real value to it or something else. That's my understanding. Someone else might have a different understanding of cultural appropriation. But I've had a problem with it myself. I've had a problem with the word cultural, or the phrase cultural appropriation, because I feel like culture is fluid and it can belong to anyone. So if I see somebody who is not from my culture wearing a dress that is called African dress, my first thought to me is that, wow, this is a good thing. We are spreading our culture. And wow, we whatever they may think of it, it doesn't come close to the fact that they took the time to actually buy that outfit and wear it in public. I feel like the way we use cultural appropriation can discourage people from digging into our culture, because I have talked to a few people who feel in this culture, who feel that, oh, I like seeing you in your African outfit. Then when I say, can I get you one? They say, no, I wouldn't like to be seen as though I'm appropriating the culture. So it becomes a problem, and maybe we can redefine the way in which we see this thing, but at the same time, we can celebrate culture for sure without.
I agree. I think that that's my understanding as well of cultural appropriation, the idea of taking elements of someone else's culture and using them, I would add potentially inappropriately or in a way that is disrespectful. I think sometimes the tricky part is it's not always clear when that's happening and when that's not happening. when I also think about this question in respect to how those of us in the African diaspora connect to our African ancestry and roots, you know, there's this different relationship that exists for Africans in the diaspora who have chosen to come here, and those of us who are the descendants of people who were brought here by force. And so for us, what is our culture? What is the cultural appropriation? It's difficult because we don't fully know where we came from. We're not sure which country our people came from or which ethnic group our people came from. And so for many of us who are desperately trying to connect, we are doing so with the access that we have that exists to us. And that also can be predatory when there are people who are teaching us things that aren't actually culturally accurate because we are so eager to learn. My experience through this has largely been through the cultural arts, as I mentioned earlier. I have seen the impact that it can have on our community to find ways to connect to our culture through arts. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just give a very, very, very quick story about this because I think it's important. You know, growing up, I had a lot of challenges with sort of identity crisis, not knowing where I came from, not knowing who my people were. I come from a multiracial family, and so my mother's family disowned us because my father is black, and my father's family disowned us because my mother is Spanish. And I grew up with no extended family, and I was lost until elementary school when I was given an opportunity to take a West African dance class by a Ghanaian teacher. And I will never forget that moment because in that class, after the class, the teacher came and said to me, "How did you learn those movements? How did you learn that language? You're speaking a language." And I had no idea. It wasn't something I had ever learned. I'd never taken a class before. It was something that lived inside of me. It was ancestry speaking through me that I didn't know existed. It changed my life because in that moment I felt, aha, this is how I can connect to my culture. This is the way for me to connect to my ancestry. And I have been dancing West African dance ever since, and doing my best to try to bring opportunities to our community for African Americans who don't have the pleasure or the benefit or the ability or the access to travel to the continent. If we can try to bring some of that to them and start young, starting that with our children in elementary school so that they can learn that their history doesn't start with enslavement, but that their people are kings and queens and are the first doctors, the first lawyers, the first artists, and we can share that with them in a way that they can feel excited about, but it has to start early. And so that's the challenge here. I don't know how I can culturally appropriate my own culture that was stolen from me. And this is our opportunity to try to learn about how to do that and engage with that in a responsible way, and we have to be stewards of that with each other and help each other and not make each other feel badly if we make a mistake because we didn't know.
I was locked in right here. I do think a point that you made, having empathy for the diaspora in general, because they are the children who are taught by thieves, right? And I know that's an inflammatory statement. We need to understand that these are the descendants of people that were taken, and they are being taught historically inaccurate things, right? So when mistakes are made, we cannot necessarily say it's cultural appropriation because there is no guide for how to navigate culture in this country, right? Like they are being taught by individuals who have taken things from other countries, or AKA melting pot. So our next question is, what ways can cultural exchange programs and festivals help break down stereotypes? And again, we're gonna take an answer from this side and an answer from this side.
So I think one way would be, I look at, even when we come to things like this, and we get here and this is an African thing, and a lot of times the Africans aren't even wearing the African things, right? When you're in a space like this, the Africans don't even use their African names. So how do we as African Americans begin to learn, as we talk about appropriation, right? How do we even begin to learn those things? I think colonialism has done a terrible thing on both sides, that we can't come together and sit down and really begin to understand and appreciate each other. It's always this, because of what we was taught, again, on both sides, we don't even come to the table to have that conversation like we're doing now. And I mean in a true way, not sometimes I go to different events, and yeah, they're talking about it, but it's not a true African way of looking at things. And so we get kind of jaded because those who have got that ancestral calling really want the essence of what it is to be African, and we go and the people we go to who we think are African are more colonialized than we are. So it becomes hurtful when I can't sit down and have a conversation about what I thought, what I've learned, what I feel, because everything has been turned around, right? Me being a person here who really wanted to understand African spirituality, and you go talk to the Africans and they want to tell you more about Christianity than like as if you don't already know. So it becomes kind of hurtful, and then people get turned off. I've had a few friends who have done the African ancestry test and ran into an African from where they were, and they said, "You're not even African. You're not one of us. You're not Yoruba. You're not a Khan." So we go through all of that, and we still can't get back. Even today, in most of the countries, we can't go back to that country that we fought so hard to try to find. Ghana is doing a great thing, but if mine is Cameroon, I would like to go to Cameroon. And they don't have dual citizenship. So until we have these conversations, until we come together and sit down and say, "No, my child, let me teach you, let me show you who you are," then I don't think we're ever going to get to the place where we can truly be, as African Americans, African Caribbeans, or wherever else the African is dispersed around. As a matter of fact, there's so many Africans that I meet that they don't even know who they are. They were born in the country. And now they're trying to go back to the traditional. They're trying to find their way back to the village so they can go talk to the one who can open the sky and tell them who they are. Because their parents got colonialized. And their parents turned down the kingship, or turned down that special power that they were supposed to have, that's supposed to last through lineage, through time, through everyone. So until we get to that point where we can really sit down and have the conversation about who we truly are, then I think we'll continue to miss, because the Africans are trying to be more like us and we're trying to be more like them, and we keep missing somewhere in the middle.
And festivals help break down stereotypes.
Thanks. This was a great. I'm going to briefly talk about my work, not only in the U.S. but in Europe, right? Looking at Caribbean migrants and African migrants, blacks from the Americas and black people. Is it the work, right?
It's not.
Okay. Yeah. So my work, black people from the Americas and black people from Africa in a different context. When I was doing my research, I was interested in two things. I wanted to see the kind of work they were doing together and their experiences in France, right? And so the first thing I realized when I started interviewing people, African people in African communities, is that I had preconceived notions of African people. Number one, I think we often do the same thing here. We kind of lump African people in the same basket. Not the case. You know, you have people who are different by nationality, by ethnicity, by culture, by class, right? And likewise, when I looked at the Caribbean people in France, people were different by class, by islands, by color also, because of the Americas, plantation slavery. And so what I found was a very kind of fragmented, African diaspora. I did find some common ground. I had the privilege of interviewing Aimé Césaire, one of the founding father of the Negritude movement. almost the equivalent of W.E.B. Du Bois. The privilege of interviewing Maryse Condé, who is the francophone version of Suma. What's the author of Suma? The biggest her name. Yes, thank you. The quote, and what they said is that unlike the Caribbean people and the African people, the migrants, the workers, who were not really connecting, right? Because they were doing their own things, right? Africans are doing their own things. Even groups in Africa, the Senegalese people stayed with the Senegalese people, the Malian people stayed with the Malian people. There was also religious differences. The Congolese people, they were doing their own thing. What I did find is that there was a common point when it came to people who were educated, right? And so when we are in these circles, we have friends across national boundaries, right? But we have to understand, so ultimately, my conclusion was, we have to understand where people come from and what are their interests. We can't, I realized I couldn't expect the migrant from Mali, from Senegal, who is in Paris, who's working there, for 2 or 3 years in a row, doing odd jobs, sending money to his family or sometimes her family back home. They have no interest in connecting. They got other things to do, right? So we have to understand these realities also, right? So in a nutshell, we have to understand that our communities are fragmented, and is it a bad thing? Is it always a bad thing? That's it's a tough question, right? But people have responsibilities, they have lives, and essentially, let's understand how class, nationality, culture can create unity, but also differences.
Let me jump in there, and these have been very wonderful submissions. I would add that to understand what is happening and whether what you call cultural exchange programs are inadequate or sufficient or even appropriate, we should try to understand the current structure of the global political and economic system. Now, literally everything that happens anywhere else flows from there. As a Nigerian who came here to study and who is very actively involved in trying to change things in Nigeria, and who is also leading the Nigerian community here and interfaces with our African American brothers and sisters, I get these weird complaints from both sides, and I'll tell you why I think they're weird. So, certain Nigerians complain about certain individual behavior of people they deem different to themselves. Now, I've also heard our African American brothers and sisters complain about certain behavior from individual Nigerians and other Africans that they deem different to themselves. Now, why is that so? Why does my brother who just spoke, and sorry, I don't know where he's from, or maybe himself here, but why would he think himself different to me, for example? I mean, if we appeared elsewhere and nobody gave you context, and you just looked at us, would you think we're different? Now, the reason you're thinking we're different is because there's a system that has framed that. Much of how you've studied, much of how you've grown, much of the information you've consumed revolves around that understanding. So that's why you see somebody who's exactly like you, and you think they're different, and then you're offended by something they do. And permit me to go back to the question on cultural appropriation. Our approach is that what our African American brothers and sisters have evolved here, which is magnificent, is an extension of the ancestral culture. Now, whatever part of African culture they choose to partake in, there is no appropriation. It is them rediscovering their roots. And of course, we say that intent is core when you're discussing appropriation, right? So if it's disrespectful, if there's a power imbalance, all of that stuff. But the point is that from a perspective of principle, I do not think that any black person, call them African American, call them European Africans, can appropriate their ancestral culture that they were forcefully removed from. I think it's bad faith to suggest that their attempts to reconnect reeks of appropriation. And now you would have to totally misunderstand the history and the current global trends separating both sides for you to make that argument. Now let me make this other point. For us, and I keep using that expression because we are actively working to change that. You see, everything is politics. At least that's how some of us view it. Most things are politics. All right, now, the powerlessness we feel is a product of the entrenched divisions that exist amongst us. And that division has a root. So if you go back home to Nigeria, the people in charge of governance are not the best Nigerians. They're not the most competent Nigerians. If you go to Ghana, if you go to the 54 African states, some of the individuals in charge are not the best. Now, so I know you say neo-colonialism. And some of us think it never really ended. What we think happened was that they just transitioned and chose local lackeys who are giving Africans a horrible job of governance, and then those who put them there are taking those pictures as the best expression of what Africans can do. And that's why when you take a Ghanaian from Ghana and you put him in the best American laboratories, he gets you the best. Whatever it is, science, technology, medicine, the same thing with any African for that matter. But if you put them in Ghana, where there are horrible Ghanaians in charge of leadership that cannot create the enabling environment, then they help you paint that picture that the African is incapable. So we have decided not to moralize. The strategy, the approach that has held you down is strategic. And these strategies, they keep, tweaking them every now and then, modernizing them, essentially shaping them to meet changing global trends. So now there's a trend where even amongst the Africans who came here legally, there's going to be a difference between the Africans who migrated legally and the Africans who came in illegally, right? Now, that is apart from the difference between the African Americans who were forcefully brought here and their brothers and sisters who came voluntarily. So the difference continues. So what we have chosen to do is to respond strategically. And part of the strategy, and again, this is why this forum is beautiful, and I hope it doesn't stop. Let it continue, let it expand, take it to more places. We will start to deliberately break down those divisions. Last year, we launched a program where African Americans who have traced their roots to anywhere on the continent and who wish to visit, all right, we create a path for them to do that. We hold a cultural event, we call it a ritual, all right? We hold a cultural event within the Nigerian community where we induct them into the African ancestry. It's just symbolic. And then we give them an African name if they want. Now, not because we want to drag them from being African, no. We're just trying to say, no, you're not different. Anybody who told you that, has been like. The final point is this. Somebody made that point earlier on. Please understand that a lot of the people living within Africa, especially places like Nigeria, where when I was growing up, to be Western is a good thing. To speak English as well as the Englishman, or to sound American when you're speaking English, right? These were considered, as a matter of fact, sometimes in Nigeria, if you speak good English, you're thought of as being intelligent, right? Even if you're a moron, right? So your ability to use that external language. But if you are very adept at any of the African languages, that doesn't confer any sort of intelligence on you, right? So we're starting with things like that to say, if you're comfortable in any forum where we are organizing things, speaking an African language that you can explain to us, use that language. If you want to wear an African clothing, use that. If there's an African event, we're not inviting African Americans. We're creating an African event for all African peoples, even those who were brought to America forcefully, to take part in. So, strategy above moralizing.
Thank you. We talk about stereotypes. Try to remember where you got your stereotype from. So capitalism is the perfection of slavery. And within slavery, all your perspectives, all your ideas come from media. Whoever creates that media decides how you feel about certain things. That includes food, that includes children, that includes cultures, that includes yourself. So when you talk about these different stereotypes of people that you have never seen, never spoken to, never met, right? You need to understand that that is not your perspective. That is the perspective of the person who gave it to you. Thieves. Remember we talked about thieves earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Connection. Okay.
Everyone, and thank you, Gandhi, what you said. I remember when I was growing up. Yeah, I remember when I was growing up because my parents were the wave of Nigerians that just before the independence, they studied in England. So it's normal at that time that when they usually they go, they don't stay and they come back to the country. It's normal at that time that when they come back, the children goes to English-speaking school. You don't speak English, you don't speak Yoruba at school. They say you're speaking vernacular. You have, they give you an English name because you're Christian. They will call you Peter, and they will call you with your first name because that will be your first name, and then your middle name will be Omolola or something like that. But you end up being Peter. So with time, this is how we grew up. That I barely speak my language outside the house. We were lucky to have extended family. So when I had my own children, for a bit when I had my few months old child, we were speaking the language because my husband is Nigerian, but it got to the point that I just totally forgot. Because I was never in a space to remember that language is important. So both of my children, they are grown-ups now. Most of my grown children, because I have grandkids now, they can't speak the language. And it's something that I've lost, that anytime I think about it, I know I've done something that was not, and it wasn't my fault. It was the fault of my own parents. And that's how it's happened to so many. And another thing that changed my life a few months ago is I traveled to Senegal. I've never been to a French-speaking country before. And I've never been to another West African country. I've been to South Africa and other places, but I've never been. But going for a month to Senegal, and Kaya was with me. We were there for a month. And what I saw and what I felt when we went to Gorée Island, when we went to Kunta Kinte Island, I felt the spirit of those people. Mm-hmm. And every single person that was there felt that spirit. I felt the spirit of our ancestors there. I felt the cry of those people. So at the end of the day, they never taught us anything about enslaved people because I went to an English-speaking school. I think maybe they mentioned it briefly. Few months ago was the very, very first time that I learned the real story of enslaved people in Senegal and Gambia, that I truly understood it. I never understood it. I've read it, I've taught it, but I never felt it. I felt it for the first time in my life. And that's what's taken away from us. So even though we were not enslaved, we were enslaved in our head. Mm-hmm. We were disconnected in our head. And it's a master plan. Because if all this were not done, we will be one. One nation, one continent, and we will be where we're supposed to be. But this was done because they need to separate us. And the way we see African Americans before we came to this country, it's all on a negative tone. Everything we see on TV, everything we hear, everything we read, it's all negative. So when we come here, When we see people, when they are neighbors, when we sit with them, that's what we think. Until you begin to unlearn. It's a process. You have to unlearn what we were taught before you can really see yourself in them. And that's the process. So for African Americans to say, oh, you Africans, your names, this is what has been done to us. Even us that were left behind, a lot has been taken away from us. So we have to go back again. And that's why you see lots of Nigerians with their long names. You think it's like a sentence, because they really know that a name and our culture is something that we're going to pass to the next generation, to the next and next generation. So that's why that name is important. So far we can pass that name, it's going to be there forever. So that's why name is very important to us. Thank you.
It is radical to stand up for yourself. It is radical. It is important to make people say your name correctly. It is important to make them repeat it until they get it right. This is a system that is, so when somebody says your name incorrectly, I don't care if people do it all the time to people around me. I have a European name, right? So all of my friends, they have Lakeisha. They cannot say Lakeisha for some reason, right? I think that it is important to for yourself, and names are important. The names are given to you for a reason. Stand up for your name. If they say it wrong, make them say it again. Make them say it again until they get it right.
So yeah, so many interesting discussions. Again, we have to be mindful of the time. So I will move to the next question, and to so many interesting things, and we'll probably get back to a few of those when we get to the fifth question about democracy and governance. So the question now to our panel: Africans and the diaspora collaborate to support economic development and entrepreneurship. So who wants to try this?
Okay, how can we support economic development and entrepreneurship? I think we are already doing a lot of that in one way or another. Maybe people do not know this, but I think giving the example of different or various African peoples around this particular country of America, we are actually working so much with people at home to support economic development and entrepreneurship. I know businesses that are running between here and Africa as a continent. I know a lot of people who are working together to make sure that they trade between those two countries. For example, I know shipping companies where people actually take their own things, or where they buy goods and ship home in one way or another. I think I know Nigerians who actually ship cars. I did not know also that in Western Africa, there are some countries that drive on the same side as America, and so it becomes quite easy for them to be able to carry or get stuff and take it back home for trade, or even for helping families there to begin their work. I'm talking on a level that is probably very low down here, but I know also that there are people on this panel who might know things that people are doing to be able to collaborate and cooperate in economic situations. But let's not only speak about the big things. I like to look at the mundane things. Like, for example, the country of Kenya, where I am from. Right now, we even have a diaspora ministry because of the way Kenyans in diaspora are supporting people at home and supporting themselves. I think Kenyans in diaspora are actually investing at home more than they are here. They go back home, they buy a lot of like houses and apartments and things like that, and they are renting out to people there, and they are getting income, which they sometimes even, use here or over there, and also not only helping themselves, but also helping the families that they are working with. So there are a lot of things happening, and Kenya's diaspora gave Kenya, or not only shipping, but also just sending money between Kenya and the US. There was 54 billion Kenya shillings in 1 year. So every year it grows. And so people are very keen on how they can cross over in one way or another to be able to grow themselves and grow others. Because a lot of our families also depend on us fully to be able to support them back home. So instead of even sending money we also create employment for them to be able to be workers in those buildings, or even be managers to manage the buildings and everything. Also just shipping things, different kinds of things, house goods, clothes, and everything. So you don't have to be a big corporation. You can be this small person just alone, or with a few people buying land, cooperating, and everything, to be able to get things back home and develop yourself and develop others. Because we know where we come from, and I think that supporting ourselves by getting things over there is also supporting a lot of people back home by investing in our own cultures, in our own homes, in our own ways, small or big.
All right. That question. Sorry, this is yeah. That question is very important because part of the problem is also, economic disempowerment, right? So you've got to retool economically, but there's no better place for Africans in America to start to reinforce their economic base than in their ancestral homeland. In Nigeria, for example, where we think we're very, very rich, very rich. As a matter of fact, as a Nigerian, I can tell you very confidently, there's no known natural resource that you will look for in Nigerian soil that you won't find. The problem is that, as I mentioned earlier, leadership is inept, but the Chinese are starting to show what we could be doing better. And that's why I'm reaching out to our brothers and sisters in America. Your combined spending power as of 2024 was about $1.8 trillion. It's projected to be $1.98 trillion by the end of this year. That is bigger than the size of all the African economies. You would be able to take those products and sell them to Europeans. And if we succeed with the sort of change that we're trying to birth in governance back home, and I know you said you're coming to that, but I always like to touch on it, then you wouldn't have to worry about whether Europeans are going to want to buy from you or not. Because the fact is, if you structure value creation from the raw materials that are present on your land, the individuals currently benefiting from it will have no option than to patronize you. So please come home. All right, that's the first way you're going to start. The second thing is to prioritize Black businesses. And this is not about ethnically profiling businesses. Okay, the business is not Black, don't buy from them. No. This is about, again, building a power base. Money has a science. Everybody knows that. If we set up a business here, and we have a structure that gets the money to circulate, everybody will live better off. I mean, the Jews have shown it over and over again. We can do that as well. You can start to patronize black businesses, or if you are a successful black business person, you can start to give out that knowledge. I'm a lawyer, but I do several businesses. So in fact, you'll be shocked to know the number of businesses that I need to. And that is because I understand that ultimately it comes down to the resource question. So, African American brothers and sisters, look that way. That's where your economic destiny lies. And I don't say that with any disrespect. We're going to support you. We're going to provide the enabling environment. Organize capital, organize land, organize all of that. The regulations, somebody talk to me. I'm a lawyer, that's what I do. Don't worry about the regulations. All right? But set up these factories and make a lot of money. The Chinese are getting wealthy, I can assure you. They're taking your fathers and mothers' resources and they're becoming very, very wealthy. And you're watching.
Thank you, Doctor. This is so sorry, the microphone now is working. Yes, I was saying this is so powerful. This is a very interesting discussion. I see the time here. We have to skip one question, but we already covered that in one or different way, right? We covered that when Gandhi kind of talked a little bit about governance and policies. So the last question, and we even started those answers for the last question, right? We mentioned, among other things, keeping our African names, you know, having programs like the PART, having more cultural events, you know, or fostering what my brother John is doing with the African American Chamber of Commerce, you know, those kind of things. But the question I have for our panelists here, the last question, is what is one practical step, right? So we want to get out of this room with one thing we all agree. It's not going to be my responsibility, me, Patrick, or Sam, or someone else, but it's going to be for us as one group, as African, to say, hey, we are going to do this. So we want an actionable item out of this discussion. So for each of you, the panelists, one is one practical step both African and African diaspora can take right now, right now after this, to build stronger unity and solidarity.
I'll start from here. I'm ready. And I'm itching.
Okay, yes, go ahead. And then.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I was hoping that we could all have a voice on how we can work together to really foster, you know, our relationship. It's very important. For me, it's a really important thing. I think there are a lot of things that have already been said here, as you said, that can help us. One of them, one main thing I think, which I want to propose, is actually understanding one another, knowing one another. I think that is what we really lack. There are certain things about us Africans and diasporans, or Africans and African Americans, that happens. We don't know one another. We don't know each other. For example, right now, Dr. Fapohunda has just talked about why we have the names we have. Probably it's a place where, okay, my African American brothers may not know why I have the name Leonora. So if we understand and know one another, especially our histories, which I think I can't go into because I think Dr. Fapohunda told us very clearly what really happened. That even though we were left behind, a lot was also taken away from us. So for those of you who don't know, most African peoples who wanted to convert to Christianity during those days, including my grandmother, was not allowed to be baptized by her own African name. She had to take some strange name that she didn't know the meaning of, because it was either a name of a saint or because it was a name from the other places in the world. That became her first name. Not because she wanted, but because if she were to convert, she couldn't use her own name for baptism. So it's good to understand this, that we have these names not because we want, but because of other things. Another thing, to understand our history. I think we are ignorant about our history. So this understanding is going to help us. I was very new here in the US many years ago, over 2.5 decades ago. And I was at a function and I walked to an African American lady, very excited, because I thought that, our demeanor matched in one way or another, and I wanted her to be my friend. I told her, "Can you please be my friend?" She said no on my face. And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you sold me into slavery." And just like that, I didn't even know what all this thing is. So if we do understand our histories, we can, forget about all that. We can actually foster this relationship, like we see about the West African dance, which is saving, like making kids who may not have had a culture feel the culture again, like wearing clothes together, like getting gifts from one another to the other person. So there is nothing wrong with us really relating as friends if we understand one another and if we are able to foster that understanding so that we can work together to make sure that our lives are better and that we are brothers and sisters, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll turn over to...
We're
Yeah, we're going down
this
the
is
line.
gonna go right down the line.
Are we going down the line? Is that okay? Yeah, everyone then. But we have to keep in mind, and
phrase around the stereotyping, right, is accepting the belief or the perception of the thief. And so when I think about like what the practical steps are for me as an African American, and what I hope that I am doing in relationship with Africans that I talk to, is one, recognizing and divesting from whiteness and internalized racism, which is the strongest division